So the season might be over for the Blue Jackets, but don't worry, there is still plenty to talk about. We have got exit interviews, we have got new signings already, and of course we have to talk about the game against Pittsburgh. All that and more on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster. I have returned to video after suffering from some weird kind of plague, man flu, non-COVID related illness where I felt and looked horrendous. So I have spared you from that this weekend, but I am back. I am, of course, your host, Jay Foster, and thank you for making us your first listen or your first watch of the day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. There will never be a paywall for any of the Locked On shows, so make sure you hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app, on YouTube, wherever you watch or listen to my show, and also any other shows, because all of the Locked On shows are wonderful. Mine is probably, your favorite, I'd like to think, but everyone else is pretty good as well. So today we've got a bunch to talk about, actually. We're going to take a quick rundown of the no good, very bad, horrible Pittsburgh game and pick out some of the good in that. And we are going to talk a little bit about some of the exit interviews from some players, some from the coach, from the GM, just a handful of things that happened there. And we also have a new boy, a new son. Kirill Marchenko has made his trip over to North America. He will be in the Blue Jackets organization next season. So we're going to talk a little bit about him as well. And hopefully later this week, I will talk to someone that knows him much better than I do. And we'll do a proper rundown on what Blue Jackets fans can expect from Kirill Marchenko. But we'll give you the basics today just so you can get as excited as I am. But first, let's talk about the game. Well, first, before we do anything else, I have to tell you that this episode is sponsored by BetOnline. BetOnline has covered more this season than ever before. They've got more props, odds, and lines, especially going into the playoffs. BetOnline is where the game starts, and it's where you want to be for all of your sports betting this playoff season. So with that out of the way, let's talk Blue Jackets and Penguins. We did a little bit of a preview on Thursday's episode where we talked about how terrible everything is, and it's bad. It's been a rough year to play the Penguins. They managed to complete the sweep. They won all 5 games. They scored 5 goals in 3 of those games, including this one. But I don't think the game was as bad as expected. Unfortunately, the JF Berube experience lasted about 9 minutes. I think it lasted 6 minutes and 26 seconds, actually. He allowed 3 goals. Evgeny Malkin hit his 20th. Evan Rodriguez scored, and then not long after that, Marcus Pedersen scored only his 2nd goal of the season to put the Blue Jackets down 3-0. JF Berube, I want to say tried his best, but honestly, I don't know that he did. On the flip side, the defense was... it sure was 6 guys. Andrew Peak, Gavin Bayreuther, Jake Bean, Vladislav Gavrikov, Dean Kukan, and Gabriel Carlson were the defensemen. Zach Werenski broke his nose against the Tampa Bay Lightning earlier that week, so he was missing because he had to go get his nose set or unbroken or whatever they do to fix a broken nose. So he was getting that done. Nick Blankenberg also missed the end of the season with an upper body injury, and Adam Boquist also missed the end of the season. So not a super experienced bunch. I believe Vladislav Gavrikov was the wily veteran at a big 202 NHL games played. This is the end of his 3rd full season, so the Blue Jackets did their best. Jeff Rube allowed 5. He made 5 saves on 8 shots. Elvis Merzlikins would then go on to make 40 of 42 saves in the rest of the game, which, I can do math. It was 54 minutes or 53 and a half minutes of game. And he faced 42 shots, made 40 saves. Blue Jackets would end up pulling back, scoring 3 goals of their own to make it 5-3, and just fell short of being able to tie it up. Goals came from Justin Danforth, who hit double digits, which is extremely cool for him. The Penguins then answered back with Chris Letang, Brian Boyle. Bjorkstrand and Gus Nyquist would hit power play goals. Gus Nyquist would finish the season with 51 points. Jake Voracek would finish the season with 56 assists and 6 goals. I believe he would end up. I think he led the team in scoring, which is extremely funny because it just is. I don't really have anything wildly profound to say about this game. It felt very much like a game where, ironically, and this is something we talked about in Thursday's episode, the Penguins had more to play for in this game than the Blue Jackets did. The Blue Jackets were locked into their position for the draft lottery. The Penguins were still fighting for seeding in the Eastern Conference. If they'd gotten a point against the Blue Jackets, then they would have moved up, taken the 3rd seed, and faced New York. If they had not, and Washington had managed to win against the Islanders, I believe they were playing, then they would have taken the 3rd seed. Pittsburgh would have dropped into the Atlantic seeding and had to face Florida. And then if they made it through Florida, they would have to face one of Toronto or Tampa, probably Tampa. But, we're not speculating on the playoffs just yet. It's probably going to be Tampa, though. But, so yeah, considering this was a playoff team versus a non-playoff team, this game meant more to the playoff team than the non-playoff team. And I think that showed. I think the Blue Jackets did their best. I don't think this was a game that they were like, oh, we can't be bothered, we'll just phone it in. But it was a very tired, very young, very broken team after a very tough series and about a tough season. So I'm unsurprised. I would have loved if they could have pulled out the win, but unfortunately it was not to be. The Blue Jackets finish the season. They are. Oh, I can't find I don't have the standings anymore because the standings are hidden. Because it's playoffs now. Standings. The Blue Jackets would finish 19 points out of a playoff spot. They had 81 points on the season in 82 games. They were 37, 38, and 7. They had a goal differential of minus 38. And I believe they are locked into the 12th spot in the draft lottery, which I believe makes them eligible for winning the 2nd overall pick, but not the 1st. So the lottery is later this week, so we'll see what comes of that. We're going to do a bunch more prospect profiles, through the summer. The draft isn't till July, so we'll take a look at all of that. We're not gonna go away just because there's no hockey being played. We've got a bunch of stuff planned for the off season. We're going to do, draft profiles. We've got some grades to give out to players. We're going to do some analysis of the season as a whole. A friend of mine has some really interesting goalie analysis that I want to spend basically an entire episode talking about because I think it's really interesting and cool. So we'll be doing that at some point. We're going to be doing a top 25 under 25 for the Blue Jackets organization. So I'll be picking the top 25 players under the age of 25 that are signed to a Blue Jackets contract. So that's all coming up later this week, later this summer. It's all going on here at Locked On Blue Jackets. In a minute, we're going to touch on some of the things that were brought up in exit interviews that I just wanted to kind of summarize, I guess, and maybe talk about a little bit. So that's what we're going to do in the next segment. But first, I want to tell you about BetOnline. Because BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. You can find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, the start of the Major League Baseball season, and of course, the Stanley Cup playoffs. If you have not picked a team to bandwagon yet I cannot in good conscience recommend my choice, which is the LA Kings, but if you should want to do so, then you can find the odds for that over at BetOnline, and honestly, the LA Kings are the underdogs in the series, so maybe you should put some money on them. And I mean, we all know what happened with Columbus and Tampa Bay back in 2019. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action, because BetOnline is where the game starts. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Thank you once again for making us your first listen of the day. There were a couple of things that came up in the exit interviews. There's always stuff that comes up, and it's always like, oh, my foot fell off in March, and I played on a wooden leg for the last 10 games of the season. There wasn't really any of that came out with the Blue Jackets, but there was a couple of things that came out. One of them I wanted to really touch on was Elvis Merzlikins talking about kind of the struggles that he had this season, because obviously with the awful accident that was the passing of Batista Felix, Elvis had a really tough summer, and he came into this season and he wanted to be good. He wanted to win the Vezina for Matisse. He didn't end up doing that. He did struggle a lot this season, I thought, which is expected when a guy that you consider your best friend and your brother passes away suddenly in front of you. I'm surprised that Elvis played as well as he did. And it came out that, he has been really struggling this season with, first of all, with the cannon. The cannon going off is not something I had ever considered that might be a problem in that way. But looking back in hindsight, I can see, that seems, I think that I really hope that someone from the organization comes out and says something about that, because I want to believe that Elvis either didn't tell anyone that it was bothering him, or they noticed it was bothering him and he was like, no, it's fine, I'll work through it. He says that he's fine with it now. It took him maybe, 5 or 6 games to get used to the cannon again. But I don't want to believe that he kind of went to the organization and was like, hey, the cannon is causing me a lot of stress and trauma. And the organization was like, but it's our brand. So I really, really hope that someone comes out and either asks Brad Larson, Jarmo Kekalainen, John Davidson about it in the next kind of the next few days, because I think that's something that's really important to address, especially in light of this new mental health campaign that the NHL has just launched, where they have to talk about it. I haven't looked a ton into it because honestly, I don't trust the NHL to talk about mental health in a way that is salient or important. But we'll probably cover that later on this week when it is less brand new and there's less kind of going on. But so I wanted to touch on that because obviously I think everyone has been disappointed with Elvis's play this season, and I would be lying if I didn't say that I wasn't one of them. That's a lot of double negatives in that sentence. I thought Elvis was going to be better. I thought Elvis needed to be better this season. I have not in any way kind of blamed him for that, because obviously, trauma and grief affect everyone in different ways, and he's had a really traumatic and upsetting summer. And clearly, the start of the season, he struggled with aspects of the game. I know Christmas Eve was really tough for him. New Year's Eve was even worse because obviously all of the fireworks. Hopefully he can find somewhere to be on the 4th of July that is not going to be fireworks central. He might be in Finland for the World Championships, actually, which I really hope so, because I want him to have a safe environment where he doesn't have to listen to the fireworks all of the time and think about how, his best friend passed away in front of him. So that was something that I just really kind of wanted to bring up, was everyone who kind of, and this is not me saying that everyone who has been ragging on Elvis all season for not being good enough, just kind of a little bit of context in terms of you can't will yourself to be better from trauma. Everyone grieves at their own pace. I think Elvis maybe kind of underestimated how long it would take him to process this grief and this trauma. I fully expect Elvis Merzlikins to be back on his game next season. And you could kind of see it at the end of this season. I thought he was fantastic for the last, really from the California road trip on, I thought he was fantastic. And that was the Elvis that I was used to. It's a shame that the team couldn't rally around him, but the win against Edmonton, especially, was that was the big one. The win against Tampa Bay as well. Those were big wins, big wins for Elvis as well. So hopefully that's a really good sign of him going into the summer, figuring out what he wants to do, or not what he wants to do. That's a really bad way of phrasing it, but I hope that he can use this summer to continue to process his grief and his trauma and come back stronger, because even though it's not about hockey, I think a lot of Elvis wants to honor Kivlenieks by playing and being the very best goalie that he can be, because Kivlenieks can't do that anymore. Something else I wanted to touch on, which I found really interesting, was a lot of the players and the head coach as well have talked about how good this group is, this team. They said, they talked a lot about how much fun they had playing hockey this season, even though they didn't necessarily get the best results. They talked about how tight knit the locker room was, how much of these guys all love each other. Brad Larson got kind of emotional talking about how much this team loves each other. And he was talking about Boone Jenner being absolutely crushed when his back injury flared up and he missed the last month and a half of the season, especially considering he was on pace probably for his first 30-goal season since 2015. And after just a season removed from, I think there was something really wrong in the locker room last season, and I don't know whether it was Tortorella based. I don't know whether it was the players. I don't know whether it was the team was really bad last season, and that kind of infected everything. But apparently, whatever it was wrong, it's changed. Because so many of the players, obviously Jack Roslovic talked about how much fun he has playing in Columbus. Sean Corelli says, this has been the best year of his life, getting to play in Columbus with these people. Zach Werenski says that the room has never been better. This is the best room that he's ever been in, and I thought that was just kind of interesting to note, because I do still wonder, obviously there was a lot of departures over the last couple of seasons, and I wonder how much of that turnover has created the new room of, well, these are a bunch of guys that are kind of have come together through adversity. The guys that stayed, they all knew Kivlenieks. They've bonded through that. They've come together for Elvis. Boone Jenner has really kind of been an exemplary captain for the Blue Jackets, bringing in all of these new faces, taking out some faces that, again, I'm not going to speculate about PierreLuc Dubois' situation, why he wanted to leave, whether it was Tortorella, whether it was the room, whether it was that he couldn't agree on a contract with Kekalainen because they were playing hardball, whether he didn't like Columbus, whatever it was. But the departure of PierreLuc Dubois, I have heard, and again, this is speculation. This is not me saying this is what happened. I've heard some rumblings that there was maybe a divide in the room between some of the older guys like Cam Atkinson and some of the newer guys. Obviously, bringing in Jake Voracek has been a massive, massive difference. And I don't know that the team would have been as good this year without Jake Voracek. I think he really kind of brought the team together. And I know everyone's like, oh, fun Uncle Jake is how I always think of him, how I think a lot of the players think of him. I think he has a lot to do with how good the vibes were in this room, just because that's the kind of guy he is, I think. So I really wanted to kind of touch on that and talk a little bit about, this is a group of guys that clearly all really like each other. This is a group of guys that want to play for each other. And it feels like such a heel turn from where they were this time last season with the exit interviews. It was a completely different tone. I think everyone, obviously they were sad not to be making the playoffs, but everyone was like, yeah, this was the best year of my life. Ken Johnson talked a lot about, this has been a dream come true. I don't know that he smiled because Ken Johnson doesn't really do that, but, it was a very kind of heartfelt moment from a player that I have found to be quite reserved and not super happy about being interviewed all the time. So yeah, I'm really excited to see this group again next season. I would not be surprised if they don't. I think they're probably going to make some changes in the offseason. I think we'll see most of these players back, or I hope that we see most of these players back. Because yeah, like all the players have said, it seems like a really special group, and I do think that this is the beginning of something really great in Columbus. After a couple of disappointing seasons, it feels like they're kind of climbing back up again, and that's just really great to see. And speaking of new faces and things that are going to be different next season, we have a new boy signed literally this morning. So we're going to talk about the arrival of Kirill Marchenko. But first, I've got to tell you about Built Bar, because Built Bar is back. They are better than ever. And summer is coming. With summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. You can throw them in your bags and your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so you are fueled for your summer adventures. I am doing a charity hike in the summer, and I will be taking Built Bars with me. They are healthy, delicious. There's no more sacrificing yummy food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to built.com and order now. They've got a bunch of fantastic flavors. They've got banana cream pie. They've got raspberry. They've got double chocolate. They've got churro flavor, which is a Locked On Network favorite, and so many more. So go to built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Once again, that is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. So, like I teased at the top of the episode, Kirill Marchenko is coming over to North America. I think this is something that has been in the books for a while now. I think he is a really kind of highly regarded prospect. He's someone that I've kind of had my eye on for a year or so now. They signed him to a 2-year entry-level contract, so that will kick in next season. In 114 career games with the KHL, he had 34 goals, 30 assists, and 64 points in total with Jura Kanti Mansik and SKA St. Petersburg. So, second-round pick from 2014. He's only 21 years old, and yeah, I'm super excited about this kid. I think the addition of a right winger like that, where we've gone from being super deep on right wing to suddenly not having a ton of right wings. I feel like all of our right wings went to left wing to kind of combat the fact that we have no left wings, and now we have no right wings left. But to add him to the kind of the official prospect pool of the Blue Jackets, you've got Cole Sillinger, you've got Ken Johnson, you've got now, players like Nick Blankenberg, Igor Chinakov, who I expect to take a jump forward next season, joining players like Liam Foodie, who had a disappointing season this season, but I fully expect to have a bounce back year. We're adding another really exciting prospect to this group. And yeah, I do think Blue Jackets are going to skew young again next season, just by dint of, having the youngest player in the league on the team. He probably won't be the youngest player in the league next season, unless no 2022 draft prospects make the jump immediately, which seems unlikely. We'll see Shane Wright in the NHL next season, but that's beside the point. The point I'm making is I think the Columbus Blue Jackets are still going to be a very young team. Marchenko is only 21, so he's going to add to that youth with everyone else. Obviously, it's important to remember that Anna Boquist is only 21. Jake Bean is only 23. It's a very, very, very young team, and I think that's going to work to their advantage. And I think it's going to work to Marchenko's advantage as well, because he is a really solid player who I think will grow exponentially when he gets to North American ice, when he plays North American hockey and starts his, I say pro career. He's been playing pro for a while now in the KHL, but I would be very surprised if he is not wearing a Blue Jackets jersey on opening night, frankly. Obviously, this all depends on how the summer goes and how training camp goes, but he's maybe the most regarded prospect since Elvis Merzlikins, I think. So I'm super excited. He like I said, we'll try to do a full episode on Marchenko, what he can bring to the team, what Blue Jackets fans can expect from him. We'll have one of my prospect friends, one of my prospect guys on to talk about him later on in the week, hopefully. So look out for that. But as of right now, I think just a bit excited for this kid. He's gonna be a lot of fun, and honestly, like, make a Marchenko Johnson Sillinger line and just let them go nuts. I think that would be neat and fun. I don't know if they'd be very good at hockey, but they sure would make a lot of things happen, probably on both ends of the ice. So you heard it here first. That's what I'm pushing for. I'm not. I'm pushing for Johnson Sillinger, Bjorkstrand, but if I can't have that, then I will accept Johnson, Sillinger, and Marchenko as a line. And that's kind of all I've got for you today. Tomorrow, we will take a look at some goalie stuff. Like I said earlier in the episode, I've got some really cool goalie stats from a friend who's been tracking specifically Blue Jackets goalies this season. And so we're going to get into that and look at, finally answer the question, does the team play differently in front of Elvis as they do in front of Korpisalo? So that's coming up tomorrow, and I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at LO_BlueJackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And until, thank you once again for making this your first listen of the day, or of any part of the day. Maybe it's your second listen, maybe it's your 14th listen, I don't know. But whenever you are listening, I appreciate you. Make sure you go and subscribe on YouTube if you have not already. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.